times have you been arrested?
I don't have an actual, factual number.
And how did you tell his mom that her son was gone?
So it's just competitive energy and things that you say about other artists while you're in hip-hop culture.
One could watch this and think that you really hate because of the things that you post on Instagram.
And I dying street about this shit, man. This shit dead serious to me. And then when I do rap shit, man, this shit is full of this type.
You recognize who that is?
Yeah, that's Phil. Oh, that's his body. I felt that, you know, all of those rounds were fired for me, you know.
50 Cent and T.I. is back at it. 50 Cent jumped out there. He let him know that he's putting out a documentary surviving T.I. and Tiny. Man, listen to this. I'm gonna play where T.I. told 50 that he was getting ready to do the same thing to him. And then now 50 announced that he did it. We already know 50 know how to do.
Okay, so first, like, you know, it was really about celebrating each other's catalog. Me and this nigga talk about this, bro. This nigga, I ain't just called a nigga out the blue. Me and this nigga talk about this.
You talking about you were 50?
Yeah, man, we talk about this shit, man. This shit just come out of nowhere.
Because if you're telling, you can't even look forward to going home.
It's gonna be hell.
Where you going after you get out? The neighborhood ain't accepting that. You bitch ass nigga, we heard you's a rat. Look, even for me personally, my character, they would try to attack my character. They'll say he a rat or he just snap.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is ask him who I told him.
At this point, 50 Cent should literally rent a wife and kids and have them make diss responses. And the fact that he would actually have to rent a woman and children to like him and to respond on his behalf for T.I. and Tiny's whole family is telling.
That's when you got the right one. And be honest with y'all, man, T.I. is a lyricist, man. T.I. was gone. He was barring up on this one. He was barring up. You know what I'm saying? He brought up the Jadakiss situation, you know, when 50 and Jada went at it. Fat Joe, of course, Murder Inc. We all know how historic that battle is to hip hop. You know, the whole house situation, you know, with the burned down house, that whole situation, you know, what you mad at Puff because he was going at your baby mom. So yeah, he was definitely throwing some shots at 50. And to me, at a point, and like I said, I'm a fan of both T.I. and 50 Cent. It gets to a point with like the memes and stuff like that. Like, all right, we're at its limit. In my personal opinion, man, it's time to bar up.
Treated people how they treated us. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing that I wanted to do. It was just something that just had to be done.
Domani, also you dropped a record. It felt more, did you get any inspiration from, like, when I heard it for the first time, it reminded me of like Meet the Grams?
I would say, man, I just have questions. I just genuinely have questions. And I'm an understanding individual, and I know the reason people do certain things, it probably stem from how they grew up, how they was raised, even me.
But now, since 50 posted that he's doing the documentary, maybe you'll believe him. He just posted it this morning. But anybody in the loop knows that T.I. and Tiny have had several allegations of SA. It's already been known that there are 30 women at least that have had allegations of being kidnapped, drugged, raped. Y'all know what those words mean. And 50 Cent is saying he got 20 of them in this surviving T.I. and Tiny company.
What if the most dangerous weapon in hip-hop isn't a gun, isn't a diss track, isn't even a lawsuit? What if it's a camera? Let me ask you something. What does it take to make a man who once survived 9 bullets look over his shoulder? What? Does it take to shake a rapper who walked out of federal prison, rebuilt his empire from scratch, and buried every enemy who ever underestimated him? What does it take to make Clifford T.I. Harris, the self-proclaimed king of the South, go completely silent? 1 deleted Instagram post, 1 title, surviving T.I. and Tiny? That's it. That's all it took. And if that name gives you chills, if those 3 words just sent something cold down your spine, then you already understand exactly what kind of war we are talking about, because this is not a rap beef anymore. This stopped being a rap beef the moment 50 Cent picked up the documentary format like a loaded weapon and aimed it directly at the Harris family. This is something else entirely. To understand where we are, you have to understand where this started. Because it didn't start with diss tracks. It didn't start with Instagram memes. It started with something far more ordinary and far more insulting. It started with a handshake that never came. Versus. For those who don't know, Versus is sacred ground in hip-hop. It's the arena where legends go to celebrate their legacy. Track for track, catalog versus catalog, the greatest hits of two giants playing out in real time for millions of fans watching live. And the idea of 50 Cent versus T.I. on that stage? That would have been the Super Bowl of hip-hop moments, according to T.I. Both sides agreed. Both men were in. The announcement was supposed to be mutual, a celebration of two legends at the peak of their cultural power. And then? 50 Cent vanished. No phone call, no text, no explanation. He just disappeared from the conversation. And when T.I. went public with his frustration, speaking on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast with Gilly the Kid and Wallow, 50 Cent did something that, if you know this man's history, you should have seen coming. He played dumb. He took to Instagram acting like he had absolutely no idea what T.I. was even talking about, left him standing alone in front of the entire culture, holding a bag that 50 had zero intention of ever picking up. Now here is where you have to ask yourself, why? Was this incompetence? Was this a scheduling conflict? Was this just two grown men with massive egos failing to communicate? Or was this deliberate? Was 50 Cent, one of the most calculated men to ever touch a microphone, already setting the board for something much larger? Was the Versus bait and switch simply step one of a game T.I. didn't even know he'd signed up to play? Because what happened next suggests this was never about a battle at all. What if the most dangerous weapon in hip-hop isn't a gun, isn't a diss track, isn't even a lawsuit? What if it's a camera? Let me ask you something. What does it take to make a man who once survived 9 bullets look over his shoulder? What does it take to shake a rapper who walked out of federal prison, rebuilt his empire from scratch, and buried every enemy who ever underestimated him? What does it take to make Clifford T.I. Harris, the self-proclaimed king of the South, go completely silent? One deleted Instagram post, one title, Surviving T.I. and Tiny? That's it. That's all it took. And if that name gives you chills, if those 3 words just sent something cold down your spine, then you already understand exactly what kind of war we are talking about, because this is not a rap beef anymore. This stopped being a rap beef the moment 50 Cent picked up the documentary format like a loaded weapon and aimed it directly at the Harris family. This is something else entirely. To understand where we are, you have to understand where this started. Because it didn't start with diss tracks. It didn't start with Instagram memes. It started with something far more ordinary and far more insulting. It started with a handshake that never came. Versus. For those who don't know, Versus is sacred ground in hip-hop. It's the arena where legends go to celebrate their legacy. Track for track, catalog versus catalog, the greatest hits of two giants playing out in real time for millions of fans watching live. And the idea of 50 Cent versus T.I. on that stage? That would have been the Super Bowl of hip-hop moments, according to T.I. Both sides agreed. Both men were in. The announcement was supposed to be mutual, a celebration of two legends at the peak of their cultural power. And then? 50 Cent vanished. No phone call, no text, no explanation. He just disappeared from the conversation. And when T.I. went public with his frustration, speaking on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast with Gilly the Kid and Wallow, 50 Cent did something that, if you know this man's history, you should have seen coming. He played dumb. He took to Instagram acting like he had absolutely no idea what T.I. was even talking about, left him standing alone in front of the entire culture, holding a bag that 50 had zero intention of ever picking up. Now here is where you have to ask yourself, why? Was this incompetence? Was this a scheduling conflict? Was this just two grown men with massive egos failing to communicate, or was this deliberate? Was 50 Cent, one of the most calculated men to ever touch a microphone, already setting the board for something much larger? Was the Versus bait and switch simply step one of a game T.I. didn't even know he'd signed up to play? Because what happened next suggests this was never about a battle at all. Here's what you need to understand about T.I. This is a man who did not build his name in a comfortable environment. Atlanta in the early 2000s was unforgiving. The music industry was unforgiving. The streets were unforgiving. And T.I. survived all of it. Federal charges, prison sentences, personal tragedy that would have destroyed a lesser man. He did not become king of the South by backing down. So when 50 Cent took to Instagram and started flooding his page with mocking posts, that was expected. That's the 50 Cent playbook. Everybody knows it. But then 50 did something that the culture immediately recognized as crossing a line. He posted unflattering images of Tamika Tiny Harris, T.I.'s wife, the mother of his children, a founding member of the legendary R&B group Xscape, a businesswoman, a woman who had already spent years enduring some of the most serious public allegations imaginable, and 50 captioned those images with a direct message to T.I. Keep my name out of your mouth. Now. Stop right there. Ask yourself, why Tiny? If this is about a Versus battle, why bring his wife into it? If this is about Instagram beef between two rappers, why target the mother of his children? Unless the wife was never just a target in a petty feud. Unless Tiny was the key to something 50 had been waiting for the right moment to unlock. Because that is when the Harris family responded. And they did not respond quietly. T.I. dropped diss track after diss track. War, the right one. Lessons. What bully? Track after track. Clifford Harris reminded the culture exactly why he earned his crown. Precise, personal, powerful. But his sons. His sons went somewhere their father never authorized. King Harris, T.I. and Tiny's son, dropped a track called Made Man. He made his position crystal clear. Touching his mother was a line that should never have been crossed. He came with bars that were raw, unfiltered, and dripping with the kind of fury that only a son defending his family can produce. And then King escalated. He started wearing a t-shirt bearing the image of 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who died in a tragic apartment fire when 50 was just 8 years old. The internet exploded. Rick Ross, who has his own long and complicated history with 50 Cent, jumped directly into the comments. The culture took sides, lines were drawn, and then Domani Harris, King's older brother, released a music video for a track called Firebug, featuring footage of a home being set on fire and Domani standing at the actual grave of 50 Cent's deceased mother, leaving flowers. T.I. himself publicly stated he did not endorse targeting people in ways he would not want his own family attacked. But here's the question. Nobody could stop asking. Did the Sons just hand 50 Cent the justification he needed? To go nuclear? Because Domani confirmed on The Breakfast Club that he and King made those records without asking their father first. They knew T.I. would have said, pull back. They did it anyway. And 50 Cent, patient, calculating, waiting, had just been handed the perfect excuse to deploy the one weapon in his arsenal that none of them were prepared for. March 5th, 2026. 50. Cent posts to Instagram and then immediately deletes it. But the internet never sleeps. Screenshots spread like wildfire before the post was even gone. The title of a new documentary project. Read that again. Surviving T.I. and Tiny. That is not an accident. That is not a random choice of words. That is a direct, deliberate, unmistakable reference to Surviving R. Kelly, the groundbreaking docuseries that fundamentally changed how the world viewed R. Kelly's decades of alleged abuse and played a central role in his eventual conviction. It wasn't just naming a project. He was making a declaration, and in the caption before he deleted it, he addressed T.I. directly. He referenced how quiet he got before the Diddy documentary dropped, how people thought he wasn't coming, how he arrived anyway, and then he wrote that they were going to ask T.I. about his 20 sexual assault cases. 20. And just like that, everything changed. Because now this was no longer about Instagram beef. This was no longer about diss tracks and versus battles and family members going back and forth on social media. Now 50 Cent had reached into the darkest chapter of the Harris family's public life and dragged it back into the center of the conversation. And the terrifying thing? There was real substance behind it. Beginning in early 2021, multiple women began coming forward. Attorney Tyrone A. Blackburn held a press conference announcing he had been contacted by more than 30 women, survivors, and witnesses with claims against T.I. and Tiny Harris. He wrote letters to both the California and Georgia attorneys general requesting formal investigations. The claims were deeply disturbing, and they followed a consistent pattern. Multiple accusers, women who did not know each other, who came from different cities, different walks of life, different time periods, described the same sequence of events. Being invited to VIP sections or private gatherings connected to the couple, being offered drinks that appeared to have been spiked, waking up with no memory of what followed, finding themselves in situations they had not consented to. The allegations span more than 15 years, going as far back as 2005. One of the most detailed accounts came from a woman on active duty with the United States Air Force. She alleged she was given a drink by Tiny at a hotel in Los Angeles that left her disoriented and barely conscious. She filed a civil lawsuit accusing the couple of sexual battery, assault, negligence, and false imprisonment. Her attorney stated plainly, forcing someone through drugs or otherwise into a sexual act they did not agree to is rape. Another accuser described being a 17-year-old intern in the summer of 2006. Police departments in Los Angeles and Las Vegas both opened investigations. The LAPD confirmed active investigation. Las Vegas confirmed a report had been filed, but in both cases, the statute of limitations had expired. No criminal charges were ever filed. The civil lawsuit filed by the Air Force veteran was dismissed by a federal judge in August 2024. The court ruled the claims were time-barred and lacked sufficient evidence of a legal cover-up. T.I. denied everything. He stated publicly that anything he and Tiny had ever done was with consenting adults. His attorney called the claims groundless and demanded accusers reveal their identities. So legally, the Harrises have never been convicted, never formally charged. The most significant civil case against them was thrown out. But here is the question that 50 Cent wants you sitting with right now. Does a dismissed lawsuit mean nothing happened? Does an expired statute of limitations equal innocence? Does a legal outcome close a moral conversation? Because those are the questions that 50 Cent placed directly inside your head, and he did it with nothing more than a deleted Instagram post and a title, and then came the clip. Footage connected to the documentary episode. A woman, sitting directly in front of the camera, composed, detailed, clearly emotional, but not performing emotion. She describes the setting. She describes being offered drinks. She describes the disorientation that followed. She describes what she says happened next, in terms that are difficult to hear and nearly impossible to watch without reacting. But here is what made the internet stop scrolling. She was calm. There was no dramatic music, no dramatic lighting, no tricks, no performance, just a woman who has clearly told this story before, who knows every detail, who sat down in front of a camera not for fame, not for money, not for attention, but because after years of silence, she wanted someone to believe her. Within hours, social media divided the way it always divides on stories like this, those who immediately believed her, those who pointed to the lack of criminal charges and called it vindication, and those caught in the uncomfortable middle. People who wanted to have a clear answer and found themselves unable to look away from that footage without feeling deeply, profoundly unsettled. Because here is what nobody, not even T.I.'s most loyal supporters, could escape. What does it mean when a woman sits in front of a camera, calm and detailed and unshaking, and tells a story like that? What does it mean when 30 women who do not know each other describe the same methods, the same settings, the same patterns across 15 years? And what does it mean that the legal system ran out of time before it could answer those questions? 50 Cent didn't need a streaming deal. He didn't need a premiere date. He didn't need a press kit or a finished film. He needed one clip. And the damage to public perception, to T.I.'s promotional run, to the Harris family's carefully rebuilt image, that damage does not wait for a premiere. It happens the moment the clip starts playing on someone's phone. It happens when someone who had never heard of these allegations types T.I.'s name into a search engine for the first time. That is what 50 Cent understands about power in the modern media landscape that most people in this industry never figured out. Here is what makes this different from every other beef in hip-hop history. Cent has done this before. The Diddy documentary he executive produced premiered on Netflix in late 2025. It became one of the most watched and most discussed pieces of content in recent memory. It brought together testimony, archival footage, and new interviews in a way that permanently changed how millions of people think about Sean Combs. Cent was not just a producer on that project. He was a brand. His name alone told people, this is real. This will not look away. This will go there. And now that brand, that specific, devastating documentary format brand, is pointed directly at T.I. and Tiny Harris. Whether the full documentary exists in a finished form right now is unclear. There is no confirmed network, deal, no streaming partner announcement, no official production schedule. But here is the brutal truth. It doesn't matter, because the threat of total exposure carries weight whether or not a film ever gets released. Because the defamation trial between T.I. and Sabrina Peterson, one of the first women to publicly share allegations against the couple, is scheduled for June 2026. And that trial, if it proceeds, will put testimony and evidence into the public record in ways a deleted Instagram post never could. The intersection of that legal battle and 50 Cent's media campaign creates a perfect storm that the Harris family will need to navigate with extraordinary care. T.I. has maintained publicly that he is focused on defending, not defeating. His sons continue to make noise. But there are questions that bars cannot answer, questions that memes cannot deflect, questions that a well-timed interview cannot redirect. When a woman sits down on camera, face visible, voice steady, details intact, and tells her story directly to the world, you cannot distract your way out of that. This is not just a rap beef. This is not entertainment. Underneath all of it, the diss tracks, the Instagram wars, the deleted posts and viral clips and family members going to war, underneath all of it are real women. Women who came forward, at great personal risk, who faced disbelief, harassment, and the grinding indifference of a legal system that was either unable or unwilling to act within its own time limits. Women who gave interviews and then disappeared back into silence when the news cycle moved on. Those women are still here. Their stories are still here. And now, because of one man with a camera, a platform, and absolutely nothing left to lose, those stories are back in the center of the conversation. So here is the question that matters more than any of the others. Is hip-hop, is this culture, actually willing to hold its biggest names to the same standards it claims to believe in, or does the crown protect the king? 50 Cent is not done. T.I. is not done. And the women who started this conversation years ago, long before it became a beef, long before it became content, long before it became a documentary title on a deleted Instagram post, they were never done either. The clip is devastating, the implications are even more so, and we are just getting started.